Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Art of Parenting podcast. This is your host, Jeanne-Marie, and today I have Lauren Chaitoff, who is a yoga instructor for children. And so I'm very excited to be talking about yoga and children. I personally love yoga, but I'm an adult and I didn't know yoga when I was a kid. So very excited to talk to you, Lauren. Thank you for making the time to be here.
Oh, my pleasure. I'm looking forward to speaking with you as well.
Yes. So as I always like to get started, I like my guests to define what the art of parenting means to them.
That's a good, deep question.
Let's start off.
Yeah. Let's jump right in. Oh, well, no, I mean, I love it. You know, to me, everything in life kind of goes back to yoga. It always goes back to yoga for me. And the art of parenting, it also goes back to yoga. What I really think of, to me, yoga is life, right? So when I think of the art of parenting, what comes up for me is parenting is a lot of expanding, right? A lot of, oh, this is the best feeling ever, and like love of no bounds. And then it's a lot of contracting of like, I'm hiding in my bathroom with the door locked so I can just like eat a snack and no one bothers or touches me. So similar also to the labor process of like expanding and contracting, which I just kind of thought of that. To me, the art of parenting is a lot of expansion and a lot of contraction, similar to the breath. So kind of tying it into yoga. But that to me is a constant flow, and it's a constant, this is amazing, and then, oh my gosh, I'm going insane. So that would be my answer.
I love that. And it's true. Like I was envisioning myself in yoga sometimes when you're just like, oh, so happy in a flow. And then suddenly there's like a pose, like, what the heck? I like that analogy.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Yeah.
So Lauren, I'd love for you to take a little moment to just introduce yourself and just share with our viewers, our listeners, a little bit about your background and how you came to create Yogi Beans.
Yes. So I started Yogi Beans in 2007. My background, I was a theater major. So I come from a theater background. I did a lot of children's theater as well. I gravitated towards children even then. And I started Yogi Beans. I got into the world of fitness when I was acting. I started teaching Pilates basically as a means to an end to pay rent. Then I got into yoga, and I was kind of on this point, like kind of on the precipice of, I don't think I'm going to act anymore. What am I going to do with my life? I was, in my mid-20s, and as I was getting my yoga certification, I was told at my teaching, during my teacher training, they gave you like a little practicum, a little test. And they said, Lauren, you have great alignment. You know your cueing. However, you have a lot of energy, and you might want to tone it down if you're working with children. That was their kind of feedback to me. And I thought to myself, well, I do have a lot of energy, and this is who I am. I'm very big, even with children, like authentic expression. And I thought to myself, well, I want to be who I am when I teach. And I should probably take this energy and use it to teach kids, because children I have known from theater and nannying respond to my energy. It's engaging and whatnot. I do have a high energy, big facial expressions. So that was kind of the impetus for the idea to start Yogi Beans, getting that feedback about my own personality and acknowledging how so many of my adult yoga and Pilates clients had children, and I would hear these stories of how stressed they are, or I would live in New York City at the time. They're interviewing for preschools and elementary schools, and I couldn't wrap my head around that. Like, why are children feeling this pressure? And this was in 2007, even before social media, which has done a whole number on children's mental health.
Yes.
So that's a little bit about how I started Yogi Beans, where the idea came from.
And I love that you took what could have been a criticism about your high energy, which I find like, why would we say that to someone? But anyway, I love that you took that and went, okay, well, I'm going to use this energy that I have for children. Yeah, that's perfect.
Yes. That's
perfect.
Made it constructive.
Exactly. And it's sad because, I can hear that criticism often said to children who are high energy, and what a beautiful, energy
to
that
use
they
that
have.
energy, right?
Exactly.
Yes.
And yet we say, no, squash it down. Don't be so loud and so forth. So lovely. So tell us a little bit about how, if a parent, is listening or watching us today, how do you introduce yoga to children, and how young? Because I mean, I think, we have prenatal yoga, we have mommy and baby yoga, we have all of this. So we can start, in utero, really. But like you teaching it, so more in a kind of a more conventional way. How old or how young are children, and how can parents kind of incorporate that at home as well?
For sure. I can give your listeners some actionable items that they can sprinkle into their day. I always think, and again, I think you're never too young. With babies really little, I'd say under 18 months, we're always thinking about the vibration of yoga, right? They're not holding a pose, right? It might be oftentimes with babies, it's the energy of the caregiver that you really need to focus on, because the babies are so porous, right? Even children are so porous and susceptible to the energy around them. So going back to the art of parenting, for the really little ones, it's starting with you, right? Can you calm yourself down? Can you maybe play some music that puts you in a nice, calm, grounded state? And then maybe you start doing some simple stretches with the babies. In terms of baby yoga, anything where you're bringing the baby's knees gently into their chest, you could do this on a diaper changing table. That's always really good for relieving gas, constipation, aids in digestion. So for your littlest ones, there's a lot of kind of gently pumping the knees into the chest. However, as the children, let's say like they're toddlers, right? That 1 to 2. That's when we're having all these big feelings and big emotions, right?
Mm-hmm.
And not really knowing what to do with them. So I think the best place to start for parents listening is start with the breath. We think of yoga in the West as the poses, which that's definitely a big part of children's yoga. However, the breath is so key. We are always reminding children, when you change the way you breathe, you can change how you feel. So for a parent that might see their 2-year-old, having an explosion because they put the grape next to the French toast and it touched,
Oh my goodness.
or you cut the sandwich in the wrong direction, or the crust wasn't off. We've all been there, right? And the first impetus is grounding yourself, and then always acknowledge the feeling, right? Wow, I cut that sandwich the wrong way and that really got you upset. Perhaps to make that feeling a little bit smaller, it might not make it go away. We could take some belly breaths together, right? Taking our hand on our belly and feeling the belly go in and out. Or have your child put their hand on your belly or your back and have, maybe it's like mommy's taking a big breath. Can you feel that? We want to make the breath something tactile that they can either feel or they can see to keep them engaged.
Right. And I love that, because I know I often go back to the breath for myself and for just helping children, maneuver through big emotions. So, so beautiful. And then when you actually have group of children, how old are they when in your classes?
So we go into daycare centers when we do baby yoga. We start very young.
Really?
So we'll start, and again, I want to stress baby yoga, it's more of a bonding experience for either the parent or the caregiver. It's simple, gentle stretches. A 6-month is not holding tree pose. I want to be very clear about that. And then we start young, and it might be just getting a 1.5-year-old aware of their body, how far they can stretch their arms. Can they stand still like a mountain? Connecting them to their breath. So it's a lot of body awareness at like under 2. And then really at 2 years old, you can start getting into some of the more physicality, some of the poses, while still incorporating the breath. There's a lot of social emotional learning that ties in to yoga as well. So we start young. Babies up until teens.
Wow. And to me, it's funny because you're, when you're saying it's the caregiver and doing it with the infant, it's like reading, right? We read to our babies. Like they don't know how to read, but we're reading because we're modeling that language. Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they're watching our mouths. They're watching us
Right.
move our bodies. They're watching us breathe. They're sponges, so they're picking up on everything. I should also say for children under 3, there's always an adult with them in the room.
Okay.
So
Okay.
if we're doing a yoga class, it's either a teacher, or if they're doing a class on Saturday morning, a parent or caregiver is coming with any child that's 3 and under.
So they're doing yoga with the child.
Yes. So we're either going into a school where the teachers are present, or
Okay.
if any child 3 and under,
Right.
there's always an adult
Right.
with them.
Right.
And they need that at that age.
Yeah, I'm actually remembering I was in a Montessori classroom for many years, and we used to do yoga, and I remember it was a lot of fun, and it was a lot of kind of animal poses, which they loved, right? We it wasn't like the traditional yoga and the names of the poses, but relating it to animals, and they were always very intrigued, and some really got into it. So beautiful.
Yeah, preschoolers love yoga. I think teachers are always, like you said, they're pleasantly surprised at how willing I always say this is all natural for children. It's as we get older that we start shutting off, right? So yoga, children, it makes such sense for them, and they are very receptive.
Right. And I know you have written a book recently, the 108 awesome yoga poses for kids. What inspired that? And tell us a little bit more about that.
Yes. So the book came about during COVID. I had taken all these, it's funny, right, how things work out. So I had taken all these photos for our training manual. So Yogi Beans, we also train adults that are interested in learning how to teach yoga to children.
Okay.
We have a video on demand. We have live trainings, depending how people like to learn on their own time or in person. So we train people how to teach yoga to kids. And I think it was maybe March 2020, right before COVID, I took all these new photos for our training manuals. And then March 2020 happened. Yep. So I had all these beautiful photos, and we moved all the trainings online. And I was still like, well, now I have all these photos, and our trainings have kind of changed, and everything shut down for a little while. And I thought, this would make a great book, because in the children's yoga world, a lot of the cards and books, they're beautiful, but they're usually illustrations of, like you said, a lion doing a pose or an elephant doing a pose. Children are very visual learners. So I was like, wouldn't it be great if they can actually see a human in a very clear photograph doing the pose, and then they follow it, right? We always say they don't follow what you say, they follow what you do. So to just see that, the photo, and then to have the children follow along with the photo, I thought, oh, how great is that? And also for an adult, a parent, a grandparent, a preschool teacher that wants to incorporate yoga into their class, the book makes it so easy, because you have the photo, you have how do you teach the pose, the cue, and then you have a little, what I call like a bean clue, and it's kind of a little clue to get the kids engaged, like which animal, has a long trunk or the longest neck or something like that, that's age appropriate, where they guess the pose. So it's a little educational as well.
I love that. And it's very, I will say, very Montessori in that children before 6, we tend to want to give them only concrete information. So photographs of other humans doing the poses, as opposed to, animals doing the poses, which is unrealistic and not concrete information. So kudos to you, because you taught me something new. And I always gravitate towards like Montessori, Reggio curriculums, where they're child led. So I love hearing that. I love hearing that. Yeah, because like you say, they will replicate what they see being done by another human, not, these fanciful, fantasy animals doing poses, which they know is not realistic. So
yes, another thing too that I feel you'll appreciate this with your Montessori background, we're always trying to educate the whole child, right?
Yes.
We have a methodology, of 4 pillars when we're teaching. And we want to hit these 4 pillars. So the 4 pillars are, the first one is the mind light. And that's going to teach children values such as focus, concentration, mindfulness, right? Being present in the moment. Then we have the heart light. So that's going to tap into anything SEL. We do a lot of I am affirmations, talk a lot about self-worth, self-compassion. We spend a lot of time teaching children how to treat other people, which is very important. And it needs to start from within. So we're constantly reminding children to love themselves. You are worthy. Have compassion for yourself, self-forgiveness, self-confidence, a lot of that work, right? That would be heart-light. And then the physical is the yoga body. And that's a big thing with yoga, the physicality that I think makes yoga very different from other activities children will do is yoga's a practice. It's not a perfect, right? We don't call it a yoga perfect. We call it a yoga practice. So that is something we are constantly emphasizing with the children. And then the fourth pillar is called the yogic way. And that's how do we teach our children how to best interact with the human beings around them? So values like communication, inclusivity, friendship, diversity. So those four pillars lead up to educating the whole child, which I know is very Montessori.
It is. No, and that's beautiful, because that was actually going to be kind of my next question is for me, at least personally, yoga is, yes, it's a form of movement, but it's also a very kind of mindful and meditative practice. At least, the instructor that I have, we always have a moment of just breathing and meditating before we start movement.
Love it.
And I was going to ask, how do you incorporate that with, young children who are oftentimes in perpetual motion, and that, how do you incorporate that kind of quieting the body, quieting the mind?
That's a great question, and I bet it's a question a lot of listeners have, because we think, how do you do yoga with my 3-year-old's not sitting still, right? So you have to meet children where they're at. When we teach, we know kids. I don't expect a 3-year-old to stay on their mat the entire time. I don't expect them to stay focused and do everything I'm going to do. I go back to creating that vibration of yoga. I want them to feel the energy of yoga. They might not be on their mat. They might do 3 poses. However, if I can get a kid to go home and before they go to bed, they take a few belly breaths, I have done my job,
Yes.
So it's really, we play a lot too. Our instructors are trained, and we talk a lot about contrast in our class. So when we're doing a mountain pose, mountain is Tadasana, where you're just standing, right? It's kind of like the foundational pose. That's such a simple pose, and it's great for children because it's teaching them to be steady, to be still, right? To not get the wiggles. However,
to have good posture.
To have good posture. Exactly. That's so important in terms of mind-body connection. However, in order to get them to stand still like a mountain, I need to let them jump first. I need to let them wiggle. So it's like constantly, it's a little bit of this give and take. And then they feel, it feels so how does it feel to stand still and stable and strong versus jumping around? So it's great for the kids, and it's also a wonderful teaching tool, specifically when your goal is to get children to sit quiet and still. You need to let them move a little bit. And I always say to parents and caregivers, our yoga class, it's not going to be quiet for the full 55 minutes. You're going to hear noise and giggles and music. And then there are these beautiful pockets of silence and stillness.
Right.
The whole class is not. I'm not
Beautiful.
a magician.
No, but you're giving, you're giving the children, but I feel also the parents, since they're accompanying their children, some beautiful tools to be able to manage, big emotions or a lot of movement and so forth. Because it's fine, the children have the wiggles, but there are times when we, go to someone's home that maybe can't handle that movement or all that. We have to have that self-control, right? And
Absolutely.
I feel that your yoga practice with them is teaching them how to tune in to have that self-control. Yeah.
Yes, well, there's a discipline to it. In yoga we say like tapas, like heat, right? The discipline. And that's it. That is important for children to learn in a way that they understand, not in a way that's didactic or coming down on them. But it's always, we want to cultivate self-discipline. That's what we're trying to do.
Yeah. And for me, what I like too is this body awareness, because I know in my practice, working with parents and children, so I have my Montessori background and also positive discipline. And there's a lot of, we have children be aware of how it's making them feel in their bodies. Like
Yes,
where
interoception.
exactly. And that's so important for them to understand, like, that the big emotion is coming, or where they feel it, and how to, how to address it when they feel that. So beautiful practice. Yeah.
It's so, I love that you bring that up, because for those listening, like when we think about our child, right, that we're parenting, we might notice they have certain habits, or they get a perpetual headache or bellyache at the same time, right? It's like that book, The Body Keeps the Score, right? The body is trying to tell us something. So if we can teach children at a young age to notice, oh, do you get that bellyache like every Sunday night? Is that because maybe we're having some nervous feelings about school? And just for them to start noticing, oh, maybe, my daughter, she's 11, she's a tween, and she has some anxiety, like we all do, but she's able to feel it in her. I feel it a little bit here. Yes, I'm like, yes, that's where a lot of people feel it, right in their chest. So making children aware is such a lifelong tool to help them cope with these bigger feelings.
Definitely. No, really, really amazing. Now, when you first kind of introduced all of this, you were saying back in 2007, before, kind of social media, digital and all that. In your practice, have you seen a change in children's behavior because of the digital devices that more and more children have, or not?
Yeah, I think, yes. I think emotionally, as they get a little bit older, right? Like, and when I say older, I'm talking like 9 years old.
Okay.
I can tell you a few things I've seen. With younger children, there's definitely, and I'm sure many teachers can relate to this, attention span. Attention spans are shortened. We're sitting and we're scrolling, and this is no judgment. I am a parent too. I have had to use the iPad. Like, I'm not there. However, we just want to be aware that, the more time a child spends just swiping and swiping, it's harder to watch a TV show.
Right.
Almost impossible to watch a movie.
Right.
Harder to ask them to sit and take 3 breaths.
Right.
So you see a shortened attention span with the younger children. And then as they get older, I feel like I've seen more emotional, more comparison, more also this instant gratification. We want things so quick now. Right? Children right away. And what yoga is great is, I don't know if you're familiar with crow pose, right? It's one of the arm balances. Mm-hmm. It's challenging. It's tricky for grown-ups. And to teach a child about perseverance and persistence, and you're not going to get the pose right away. However, we can build to it. It doesn't need to be in a swipe or in a click. I think those are really important lessons for children today, that things do take time, like planting a garden. We plant the seed, we water it, and you have to nurture it. It doesn't just sprout like it does on your Roblox game, It takes time. So I think these are all really important lessons that yoga can also teach children. And going back to your initial question, yes, I've definitely seen changes in 17 years with children's attention.
Yeah. Because, it's something for me that, and I've had guests talk about it, but I'm really concerned about,
Same.
how it's messing with our children's just natural development, their brain development,
are not,
their coordination, like you were saying, swiping, now we know children can't like put blocks on top of each other
100%.
Because their fingers aren't coordinated.
Fine
when
motor
it's like,
skills, 100%.
So,
I think what you said about the brain rewiring, and how you spoke about earlier when you asked, like, how do you get that child to quiet, right? Or be still. Even for a 2-year-old, like teaching them how to, even if it's 30 seconds, to go inward. Everything is so external now. Everything is on a screen. To teach them how to take a breath and feel it in their body, those might seem small, but those are big deals and game changers.
They are.
Just to,
Yeah, they are. Anything else that you would like to share with parents about, the benefits of kind of yoga, and maybe having a practice at home? I know that you teach classes, but could parents have like just a maybe a ritual around this, idea of yoga together.
So here's two things parents that are listening can do. So I think the morning and the evening are usually the best times, because those are the times when our children tend to be most vulnerable too. At 2:00 when they're playing outside and running, and that's not when you're going to want to be like, let's try some breathing. But the morning is a great time to do, when I say belly breath, you can take your hands, for those listening, and just have your child feel their belly move, or take a stuffed animal. Actually, I'll do that one at night. But in the morning, you could just have them feel their belly move. And perhaps it's starting with a positive affirmation for the day. Like, can we say together, like, I am very, beautiful, or I am very kind, starting the day with some positive I am affirmation. And then, for focus and concentration, what is great is a balancing pose. So either like a tree pose, or having your child lift one leg in the air. We call it flamingo. So they're just standing on one foot. Those are great poses to help foster focus and concentration. And kids always like a fun added challenge of balance. So that might be something you want to do in the morning. A breathing exercise, a positive affirmation, and some sort of balance. It could even be having them stand on their tiptoes, right? Just to help them focus and ground. And then at night, you can do, again, always going back to the breath, but if your child has a favorite stuffy, right?
Okay.
Have them put the stuffed animal on their belly. Have them take a few deep breaths and tell them that they're rocking the stuffed animal. So ask them if they can see. Do you see the stuffed animal going up and down? That's the type of stuff that gets the child engaged. And then maybe you say, oh, can I try it too? And that's where you can start having the discussion. These big, deep breaths, they help me feel more calm. Maybe the next time mommy is frustrated, like, I need to remember to take a big breath. Can you think of a time, so starting that conversation of how I always say the breath, it's not going to make the feeling disappear.
Of course
it will
not.
make it more manageable. It will make it easier to cope with, though, a little bit smaller. So that's a great time at night to maybe do some of those breathing exercises with the breathing buddy. Yogi Beans also, we have some great meditations on 𝐻𝐸Me. It's a free meditation app. So we have some guided meditations, some story meditations that your listeners can check out too. 𝐻𝐸Me is totally free.
Oh, love it. Yeah, I have 𝐻𝐸Me. Love it. It helps me stay on track with my meditation practice.
Yes,
so
it's a good one.
So wonderful. This has been lovely. I've really learned a lot, and I was, a little apprehensive in that, because I know children's energy, can be so vibrant. And for my personal yoga practice, I like going in that room just for the silence, for the quiet, I even get annoyed with all the chatter sometimes, some of the other, and so I was kind of apprehensive of how you manage to do yoga with young children, but it makes so much sense is to meet them where they're at and to use that beautiful energy. So thank you for that. That was lovely. So Lauren, I always like to circle back to a more personal question. Now, you're a parent yourself, correct?
I am. I have two girls, 8 and 11.
8 and 11. So if you were to go back 12 years when you were expecting your first daughter, what wise words would you tell yourself knowing all that you know today?
Well, someone once said something to me right before I had my daughter that has stuck with me, and it's kind of my bit of parenting advice that I always give to new parents. And it was very helpful. They said, just remember, everything is a phase. And to me, I was, teething. It's a phase. Not sleeping. It's a phase. Not wanting to go to school. It's a phase. The tween years. Everything has its time. And sometimes the phases are longer than others. Some might be 3 weeks, some might be 3 years. But to me, that has always helped me in my parenting. Just remember, this is a phase that we're going through right now. And my child is going to grow out of this phase, and then there'll be something else.
Right.
Everything is a phase. That has helped me when I'm feeling in the throes of it. Right.
Yeah.
It's not going to be permanent.
Yeah, and I like that because it's also a phase for us, right? I think we go through maybe doubt or annoyance or whatever, and
all of those. Yes.
It's a phase. I like that.
Yeah.
Any parting words that you would like to leave our listeners and viewers with today, Lauren?
Well, I think in terms of yoga, if you're, for those listening, you don't have to do a 45-minute class. I call it sprinkles of yoga, right? So just take a deep breath with your child. Stand grounded with your child for a moment. Maybe try just standing and closing your eyes and seeing how that feels while you're holding hands, or say something positive to each other. Make eye contact with each other. Don't feel, if you're like, this sounds interesting, just sprinkle it in. One or two things. It's about consistency. Just like anything, right? It's about consistency. If you do 1 or 2 minutes of sprinkling in some yoga every day, that's so much better than a 1-hour class once every 3 months. So don't be daunted by it. Just sprinkle it in. It really does make a difference.
It does. Beautiful. Thank you so much, Lauren, for sharing all of this. And I must say, you're wonderful energy. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It was my pleasure. I love talking parenting, children, and yoga. So
wonderful.
Good conversation.
All righty. Thank you.